Hi, Ken.
How are you?
How are you this morning?
I'm good.
Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Donna Hill. I'm going to be the host of this session.
Okay.
So when we go live, I will introduce you. We do have a sponsor for this session. So the sponsor will go first. They only get a couple of minutes. I think they actually get 5, but most of them have only been taking a couple of minutes.
That's fine.
And then I'll introduce you. I'm using the bio that you sent me, if I can find it.
You can edit it or make it shorter if you want. I just kind of sent whatever.
Well, I'm starting with the last paragraph, which is our speaker for this session is Ken Peterson before joining Benistar.
You're gonna move down there? I don't know. I actually wouldn't mind being in a place like Atlanta where it's kind of warm, but there's the sports teams are more.
Is having to speak
He still has
later on.
He's got 2-minute warning.
Yeah, because it's 1:30 now. Is everybody ready to go live? Well, I can't. Liz, my start session button disappeared. Liz.
I know, I don't see it either.
Is that because he's sharing his screen?
You know what? Can you minimize it for just a second to see, because there's supposed to be a broadcast button at the top. It might be the same color. Is that orange on the top of your PowerPoint?
Or I think it might be up there where it says you're viewing Ken Peterson's screen.
Should I stop share? Oh, here we go.
If you could unshare your screen, stop share your screen, that would.
Yeah, just for a second.
Okay.
It's still not there.
All right, let me see.
Oh, pause, stop. Are we recording?
You were, and then
you know what?
Now it is recording.
Yep, we're good to go. People are joining, so.
Okay.
Whenever you all are ready.
Should I share screen again?
You can.
Okay.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to our session, How Agents Can Use Medicare as Another Tool. Thank you for joining us and supporting our benefits forum. Please take some time to go see go visit the exhibitors and the sponsors in the virtual exhibit hall. We could not do the Medicare Summit without them, and we really appreciate your support of our sponsors. A little bit later, we'll be hearing from our sponsor for this session, which is Senior Market Sales. But right now, we're going to introduce our speaker for this session, Ken Peterson with Benistar. Before joining Benistar, Mr. Peterson started his career with the Hartford, where he worked with brokers, consultants, and TPAs to develop special risk programs and senior benefit plans. He held a similar position with Transamerica Affinity Services with a more national focus. He's a past president of the Chicago chapter of Worldwide Employee Benefits Network, which some of you know that as WEB, and now serves on the national board. He's also a member of GAHU. He has a Bachelor of Arts degree from Quinnipiac University. I was hoping I could say that.
Yeah, you did. You said it right. All right.
in Hamden, Connecticut. Welcome, Ken, and thank you for being with us.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Donna. Well, thanks everyone. I appreciate you, having me aboard here, and I'll just get right into it. And again, if Greg comes in, I can always just stop and let him go. So just let me know. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about how group Medicare solutions could be used as a tool for brokers trying to find solutions for either their groups or their perhaps prospects. So Donna went into it a little bit, a background on myself. So I put some stuff in here. So depending on what year you're talking about, I grew up primarily on the Northeast in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and Simsbury, Connecticut, which is up in the Hartford area, and Cherry Hill is outside Philly, which kind of shows the Philly references there, with the one exception being, and kind of proving that everyone has their faults, is me being a Cowboy fan living in the Philly area. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, but hey, it's kind of how it goes. But yeah, as Donna was saying, I've been doing this for a long time. I was the carrier side for 15 years, and actually started in Houston, Texas for the first year, but have been up in Chicago, outside Chicago, since '93, and got 2 kids in high school, and married to my wife. It'll be 19 years in the next couple weeks, and we actually bought a place in South Carolina last year. So maybe the migration to the Southeast, may begin, just to kind of get out of the cold weather. My wife's a lifelong Chicago resident, so she's at this point she's kind of sick of the snow and stuff. And a little bit of background on Benistar. We've actually been around since 1978, and we are a third-party administrator. Actually used to use Benistar when I was on the carrier side, so then got sucked into that ship back in 2006. But we are a federally owned, woman-owned small business entity, and our focus primarily is on the post-65 retiree medical and prescription drug plans for unions, municipalities, school districts, universities, things like that, and employers. We do run into those every now and then. And at this point, we do administration and services for 1,600 or so groups around the country, and based off of it says nearly 300,000 retirees, but based off of what we got already coming in for January 1st, we're probably going over that at this point. So that's kind of a little bit of background on there. So this is we run into situations right now on what are the group's concerns when it comes to retirees, and obviously the understanding is, and we're all talking about Medicare, and a lot of times Medicare is kind of like they know that they have to get to it, but usually the active benefits and other things related to that kind of tie the HR person or people or staff with that. Ties them up to where they know they got to get to the retirees, but it's just something that they just can't get to at this point. So here, obviously some of the concerns, maybe you've got a longer established company or group that has a lot of legacy retirees. That means that typically that they've got to cover these people when they do eventually retire and provide some sort of benefits for them. Or maybe it's some sort of union or municipality or some sort of tie-in with a group that has mandated or negotiated benefits, where you've got to come, if you're going to come with a solution, you got to come with something that's going to either match or not be viewed as a takeaway or anything like that. So you really can't deviate too much from anything with regards to to the benefits with their retirees. And with those groups, depending on how large they are and how long they've been around, and maybe whatever, again, negotiated benefits they have, they may have various contribution levels, and trying to figure out, all right, this person gets 100% contribution from the group, this set of people get 50%, and then these other people get nothing and just pay for it out of their own pocket. or maybe it's all based on years of service, and they've got different, slots that they have to kind of account for and try to figure out where everybody goes. Sometimes that gets a little bit difficult to manage. And on the active side, there's a lot of obviously with dealing with healthcare reform. One of the neat things with the Medicare, at least on the group side, is a lot of the healthcare reform mandates that came around really didn't affect the retiree side all that much. So everything's kind of just been, steady as she goes for the most part when it came to retiree groups and prescription drug benefits. These last two bullets are pretty big. Groups are trying to isolate or eliminate their FASB or GASB liabilities. Now, FASB stands for Financial Accounting Standards Boards. That's for employer groups. And GASB is Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which is, obviously for, municipality type groups. And when these came out, they came out at different times, by the way, as well. What it meant was, at least on the, for most, for both of them actually, it meant that they have to show what it's going to cost to cover the retirees 10, 20 years down the road or so. And if a group is self-funded, it's tough to kind of figure out what their claims are going to be and trying to, figure out, I don't know what's going to cost 10 years from now. I don't know what's going to cost next year. I have no idea. So, in order for them to do that, one of the frustrating things with that is they have to show their balance sheet. They've got to figure that out with an actuary and do a lot of work and try to figure out, some numbers in order to accommodate that. But you've run into situations where once they do potentially realize what their liabilities are, they figure they're already in the hole. And you find that a lot with municipalities where they've been underfunded for so long that they've realized that, you run into situations like City of Detroit, or I think it was San Fernando or San Bernardino that actually had to file for bankruptcy just because their liabilities were so bad. So what groups can do is they actually can move to a fully insured retiree medical and prescription drug plan and go with a defined contribution strategy, and that'll help isolate that cost. They can go, we're going to give them $25, $100, $200, whatever it is, or they just pay for the whole thing and figure that, okay, this will help me isolate that number. Or if they pay for the whole thing, they know that they're with trend and utilization, it'll help them kind of figure out where their numbers potentially would be down the road, as opposed to, that type of guessing. Or eliminate it. This is a good strategy for groups that have retirees that they don't pay for, that the group doesn't pay for. They just, we just have them on our plan. It's not any big deal. We don't pay anything for them. We just, have them stay on our plan. It's like, well, there's still an implicit or implied liability that still needs to be booked on the balance sheet. You actually can move the retirees off the plan into a fully insured, still sponsored by the group, and there's no cost. But because the plans are fully insured, the liability goes away as well. So that really helps, the group on that end. Now, another thing that came up is when Part D came around. So instead of groups wanting to kind of what they did with when FASB came around, and FASB and GASB, where they said, you know what, we're done covering the retirees if we got to do this. They didn't want a mass exodus of groups just getting rid of the prescription drugs coverage. So what they did is they came up with what's called an RDS, or retiree drug subsidy. And what that meant is if a group, hired an actuary, did a lot of reporting, a lot of paperwork that they needed to account for, they could actually recoup up to 28% of their drug spend sent back to the group. But when you figure out the man hours and the reporting and the time and all that other, plus there's other factors that go into it, it actually worked out to be more around like 15%. And so what a lot of groups did initially is, especially if it was a group, when this first came out, a group under like say 200 retirees, it really wasn't worthwhile for them to file for the subsidy, just because by the time they got the money and everything, it just wasn't worthwhile for them. But they've added even additional subsidies into these employer group waiver plans to help them to make there's so many subsidies baked in that it really doesn't help the group all that much going forward. So these EGWIP, which stands for Employer Group Waiver Plans, these are actually group Part D plans, help accommodate that, and they actually have the subsidy baked into the pricing of the product, and it's the full 28%, as opposed to having to get an actual physical check from the government, which you could wait up to 18 months for. You actually get it in the form of reduced premium. So that's a little bit of background on those last two. So why would a group want to carve out the retirees? It's kind of leading into this type of conversation anyway, but obviously if you take those retirees off the active group plan, you lower the average age of the actives. So in turn, that should lower the cost for the active group by lowering the average age. And obviously what you want to do is obviously make it less expensive for the retirees as well. So it's kind of a win-win all the way around. The HR staff, it frees them up from having to, not necessarily the word deal with the retirees, but the burden is much less compared to what it would be before, because the administration and everything else, all the phone calls would then be outsourced to the broker TPA relationship, and that would help the HR staff from kind of focusing on things that they know about. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit later as well. Moving to a fully insured environment, I kind of touched on that with regards to the FASB and GASB and that type of situation, and lower the overall cost to the group. So again, you want to, if there is some cost sharing with the group and the retiree, you want to make it to where it's lower the cost for the group, lower the cost for the retiree. Even potentially it could be a wash on the retiree side, even if you carve out, but lowering the average age on the active side could really help out the group. You maximize the subsidies, and I kind of talked about that a little bit already. The plans coordinate directly with Medicare and adjust automatically. So, and I'll kind of get into some plans a little bit. Obviously, the Part A and Part B deductibles, which they haven't announced yet for 21, these plans go, I remember the Part B deductible, I think was like 125 or something like 128, and then it's 142. And so now it's at $198. So this plan will actually, they all coordinate automatically. So there's nothing for the retiree to do. It just automatically does. So this first bullet goes back to the HR staff, question again. They're not experts in Medicare. So if a retiree were to call in, they're going to have to figure out, okay, I need to find out, okay, let me write your question down. I got to go find that out. I'm pretty sure I know who to contact. I'll have to check on that. Whereas if they're calling the, TPA that's kind of taking that off their plate, that really helps them to where the retiree is actually getting the answer right away, as opposed to, I got to check, I don't know, that type of situation. So it's really great to kind of help them do that. And you want to, have a plan that matches or beats what's currently in place, so that, again, you want to eliminate as much disruption as possible, so that a retiree, they generally, people don't like change, but retirees really don't like change. So you want to make sure that you have a plan that they can move right into, and that it's just a smooth transition and eliminate as much disruption as possible. So groups can be pooled. So depending on the size of the group, and they can have their plans on a standalone basis where their experience is running based off their own experience, or this opens the door potentially for groups that have a smaller amount of retirees. They have 5 or 10 or 20, or with spouses, it's a couple more. This will help those groups that feel like, man, I'd love to carve these guys out and put them in a plan, but I don't want to have my experience, I don't want to have 1 or 2 people blow the whole thing up. Well, this is a way for those groups to kind of get into a pool, and their experience will be offset by the other healthy groups within that pool, if that's something that they're concerned about. And like I said before, with eliminating the liabilities, the accounting liabilities. Groups can offer these plans at no cost. And to the next point, they can use it as a recruiting tool. So they can go, look, we can't afford to pay for anything for you, but we have a plan that other people are in right now. It's sponsored by us. You turn 65, or if you keep working, whenever you retire, you roll right into this plan. And everything's taken care of. There's nothing for you really to do other than, get signed up, get your ID cards and certificates, and you're off and running. So it's a good way if they've got some candidates that they're trying to lock down. They can, tell them like, hey, we've got something, like I said, waiting for you at the end, instead of just kind of cutting you off and saying, thanks a lot, see you later. So this, I'm sure everyone has kind of seen this one before, yeah, so this potentially could either be the retiree himself or an HR person that is trying to help a retiree, saying, hey, I'm going to be retiring in the next couple months. What can you tell me on how do I do this? What do I do? And it's as it's very confusing. So doing it on a group basis could potentially be a little bit easier for not only the group but for the retiree. So if you work with group, or you work with med sups, you kind of probably familiar with a lot of these terms and everything already. As a group plan, you got to be post 65, have Medicare A and B. The neat thing about these plans is that they function the same way as a med sup plan does, but with more flexibility. Because it is on a group platform, the carriers can file their forms as variable, and that allows them to be able to massage the benefits. So you can add deductibles, you can add copays, you can add different co-insurance amounts, you can have an out-of-pocket maximum, you can have an emergency room, doctor visit copay, however way you kind of need to. Again, this goes back to mandated or negotiated benefits, and you have to come in with something that matches or beats what's in place. And countrywide availability, so the plan obviously is all over the country. Guarantee issue, no pre-ex, electronic paperless claims, so that the retiree doesn't have to deal with any paperwork. Everything's all done through the Medicare system. So they just, when they come in, they show their red, white, and blue Medicare card, and then they show the carrier's card on top of that as the supplement. Something they're probably already used to already. If they're already in the system, then whatever services they're having done can be taken care of that way. And obviously it's available for spouses as long as obviously they're over 65 and have Medicare A and B as well. So this is something that's probably looked familiar to most of you. As you can see, the services are listed on the left-hand side. And this is your Part A. This is your hospitalization benefits. And so what Medicare will typically pay all but the deductible, and then the per day benefits with related lifetime reserve days and those things as well. This plan will actually come in and pick all that up, so that from a retiree standpoint, the important thing is they see on the left-hand side are the zeros. That's obviously the big one, and what's makes everybody happy. This is more Part A, and more zeros. And the one thing on the hospice care, I know with one of the carriers we work with, they put in all other charges. And what they mean by that is typically you would put zero down there because everything has been pretty much picked up. They had one instance, I think, I don't know how many years ago, but where a box of tissues perhaps wasn't, picked up. So they wanted to be truthful and just kind of say, well, all of the charges, but in reality, everything is picked up. But I know in my experience, I've never had anyone call in or say anything related to having anything picked up when it came to hospice. But in this situation, that's why that's there. It's there, but it kind of isn't. So this is probably where a group or a retiree is going to be using most of their their plan, and it's going to be on the Part B services, the doctor visits and things like that. So as you can see, there's just a list of some of the services on the left-hand side. What Medicare would pay. This particular plan design, the plan picks up the Part B deductible so that the retiree doesn't have to pay that. The only thing that they would have to come up with is $10 copay for some particular office visits and emergency care. And so that's again, one of the neat things with the plans being able to be designed is you can do essentially what this would be is a plan F, but with $10 copays. So the ability to do a plan F is still available for plans that are trying to come up with something like that. So it's still available, even though on the individual side, plan F went away with anyone that turned 65 as of 1/1 of this year. Again, just more examples of what Medicare would pay, and then what the other plan would pay is what Medicare would pay, what the plan would pay, and then the retiree would just pay $10 for urgent care. One thing that's noted on the bottom left here, a lot of people don't, is the Part B excess. This would be a situation where a doctor takes they accept Medicare, but not Medicare assignment. So say the charge for a particular service is $100. And the doctor says, nope, that's not enough. I'll take Medicare, but I'm not taking Medicare assignment. Well, the max they can charge is 15% above what Medicare allows. And so this plan will come in and pick that up. It's more of a little bit of a safety net, for the retirees. Doesn't happen very often, but it's there when it potentially could come up. And here's just some more services. Obviously, you can't list everything that Medicare covers, but as you can see from these screenings and things like that, Medicare is starting to cover more and more when it comes to preventative and things. Because I think what they want to do is make sure that people get things addressed earlier, as opposed to later when it could be really expensive. So if they're able to get it at the front, it'll help Medicare overall down the road. And here's just some additional services. Obviously, foreign travel, everyone's familiar with that. That hasn't changed, I think, since I've been doing this. The $250 deductible, then 20% to a lifetime of $50,000. And really, that's just to kind of get people back into the United States so they can have Medicare services, done by them in the U.S. And then the private duty nursing, they would just owe $20 per shift on that particular one. But there's also the ability to now, on some of these plans, to add vision, hearing, acupuncture, things like that. So some of the carriers have recognized that there's some, they want to compete with the Medicare Advantage plans that are out there. So they've added some other benefits that potentially could be added on. So we're going to move on to the prescription drugs, and not to downplay one benefit over the other, but a lot of times when I know I've talked with groups and everything, it's kind of like, all right, we get the medical, thanks, but tell me about the RX. I want to know how that's going to work. And obviously for most seniors, this is probably what they kind of deal with in dealing with Medicare and the drug benefits. So the big thing with this EGWP employer group waiver plan, Part D RX, it is a Part D plan. These actually can be designed to fill the donut hole with both generic and brand name drugs. Individual plans can't do that. They did a few years ago kind of say they were closing the donut hole, but it didn't close 100%. So this will actually fill that in so that from a retiree standpoint, if they have a $10 generic, $20 preferred brand, $40 non-preferred, and $100 specialty, 2 times for mail order, that would be the most that they would pay, regardless of what stage they would be in. Now, the retirees will get an explanation of benefits, or EOB, showing where they are and relating to the Part D plans, but it's kind of, here's where you are, but it almost doesn't matter, because again, when they go to the pharmacy, they just pay their copays and they're good. And obviously you can design these plans again, more flexibility on how, again, you need to match a beat what's currently in place. You can cover lifestyle drugs like Cialis and, Viagra, things like that. You can still, cover those as well. The pharmacy network is going to be the key. So you're going to want a big pharmacy network, and it's really important that you work with a PBM that's going to be able to accomplish all that. And I've kind of talked about this retiree drug subsidy. The retiree drug subsidy is baked into the pricing of the product, so there's no filing. The group gets it without having to do any of the work, so there's nothing for them to do. And they can get a discount for going mail order. So essentially what happens is usually it's, for a 90-day supply, it's 2 copays for a 90-day supply. I kind of touched on this a little bit. I probably need to update this because I think I actually do have it's covered it's 41 65.50 I think for the catastrophic now for 21. But here's the 4 stages, and like I mentioned before, it's kind of a jumbled slide, but I apologize for that. But typically the plan does not have a deductible. Usually the plans put in place do not have one, so they are able to go ahead and cover that, as well as and then as you go through the different stages, it'll be to the max of whatever copay there is. There's really no, the retiree will see this, but it really doesn't apply per se. Again, they go to the pharmacy or order their mail order drugs. That's the most that they'll pay. Here's kind of a sample plan. It's a little bit of a goofy one, but just kind of shows a little bit of the flexibility here. So you got a $9 generic. If you look up at the top, a $9 generic, $49 preferred brand. Non-specialty is, or non-preferred brand is 33% co-insurance, and specialty is 50% co-insurance. So these can be flat dollar, they can be co-insurance. It's really, again, the flexibility is kind of all across the board. And as you can see, they have a, also for 61 to 90 day supply, it's you can get if you go to preferred or standard pharmacy. A lot of the PBMs are doing this now, and it's usually they pit CVS versus Walgreens. Those are kind of the two that kind of go against, whereas say for instance CVS would be the preferred pharmacy and Walgreens would be the standard pharmacy. So what that does, if you look at the mail order, what it does is allows a retiree to get a 90-day retail at mail order pricing is really all that means. And so this particular plan, full coverage in the gap, includes non-Part D drugs. Those are covered, excluding lifestyle. So there are some drugs that are non-Part D that potentially would be covered. There's some over the counters, those types of things that actually be run through. There are some instances where it might be better off, instead of going through the Part D plan, you actually go through Part B on the medical, have it administered in the doctor's office. Now, as you can see on the catastrophic, if they were to reach, that out-of-pocket amount, it's the greater of 5% or $360 or 5% or $895, with a maximum of the copays above. Before, initially when the Part D plans came out, a lot of the plans realized that it really, if they were to reach the catastrophic, a retiree could go from paying, $100 for a specialty drug to 5% of whatever the cost of that drug would be, which could be thousands of dollars. So in order to close that loophole, a lot of the plans have tried to cover that. There's some that don't, but in most cases, these plans can kind of come in and make it to where, from a retiree standpoint, they go to the pharmacy or they get it through mail order. Whatever their copay structure is, that's the most they would pay. So if this instances was you had the non-preferred brand and specialty as flat dollar, say instead of 33%, it was, $90 for non-preferred and specialty. That would be the most they pay, and then 2 times for mail order. So here's just kind of a little bit of a brief case study. This could be a university. I picked university. It could be an employer. It could be a union. It could be any municipality. So 150 retirees. Say for a single, it was working out to about $520, per person, and they were paying, $900,000 to cover the post-65 retirees for their medical and prescription drugs. So that's quite a big amount to come up with. And they're also burdened with the fact they've got contracts, they've got obligations that they promised retiree benefits to these, retirees, and it just makes it harder for them to maintain, because with the budget, especially now with COVID, I couldn't even imagine them trying to figure out how to have students not only stay on campus but everything else. But you've got all these obligations from prior and aging workforces that the bottom line is really, really tough to kind of stay within any type of budget. So they've talked with their agent, broker, consultant, and partnered with a TPA that potentially come up with a plan that would set it up to where Medicare would be primary, and then the plans would come in and supplement that, and also put in a prescription drug plan that mirrors the current benefit for the eliminates the burden of having to file for any subsidies if they were doing that. Or there's groups that just never filed and missed out on that money altogether. This is a way to kind of help with that. So by taking a look at some of these plans, instead of at 520, they come up with a plan that's medical and RX coming in together at roughly $360, and saving them roughly $250,000 annually. It's and the renewals are pretty stable when it comes to these plans, and works out for a long-term solution as opposed to just being a band-aid. So they were able to keep the premiums low and maintain the benefits and eliminate a lot of noise or disruption for the retirees, so that they feel comfortable going into a plan that is going to be helpful to them as opposed to any type of hindrance in getting services. So instead of having to deal with the PPO or HMO network, they now can go see any doctor that they want or any physician. And it really helps the broker or the consultant kind of help out not only with the group but the admin staff and everything, to try to make sure that all of the the headaches of that is now moved over to the TPA to take care of all that, as opposed to the HR staff having to be burdened with it. So hopefully this is what the retirees are looking for. So just kind of a review of the benefits. Obviously there's no networks. So Medicare essentially is the network. I know people, it's like, well, what? Explain that to me again. It's like, just think of it as Medicare as the network. Well, Medicare is everywhere. It's like, yep, that's the case. You don't have to, there's no primary care physician or anything like that. So if something's wrong with your knee or what have you, you can go see an orthopedic, doctor and not have to worry about going through a gateway or anything. You just really just kind of go right in and have it, taken care of. And you could do standardized plans. You can do a plan F, plan G, whichever plan you kind of want to do, or there's the ability to customize the benefits and try to match or beat what's, again, currently in place, and have countrywide rates as well. And for the RX, they don't have to file. The GASB, the liability that actually works for both sides, and ease of administration and cost savings. So this is just a little bit more of kind of what you're going to be wanting to look for. Overall savings, obviously, flexible contribution and billing options. You want to have someone that's be able to do list bill, split bill, direct bill, whichever way you kind of, or some sort of combination of all three. Streamlined implementation. You can do auto enroll, where you roll everybody over all at once, as opposed to doing one at a time. You're only going to work with A-rated carriers. Make sure the retirees have an 800 number to call. I've kind of touched on a lot of these. Ongoing support, again, that goes back to the 800 number. So they're calling the 800 number as opposed to the HR person who's going to have to check on some of those things. And obviously, if they have questions, they can call into the number and get advocacy and resources, whatever. They can bring carriers on the line, they can bring CMS on the line, kind of do a conference call type thing if that's what they're looking for. And well, before COVID, retiree meetings was a big thing as well. You can kind of do them on Zoom, but it's probably a little bit more difficult now at this point. I saw this one and thought it was actually pretty funny. This could be, could be golf, could be anything. Yeah, I just, there are times where you kind of feel this way. It's like, yeah, I'm in the office. I'm not out playing. Wish I was, but that's not the case. So these are the benefits for the, the broker, agent, and consultant. New and renewal commissions. The commissions can be set up to where it pays the same amount as long as the group is written. It paid the same amount every year. There's no reduction over time or anything like that. So that it's really just kind of set up the way. A big one, and I know actually GAHU is kind of working on this, is to kind of get rid of this. But currently, right now, the scope of appointment, that's always a big thing that agents don't really like to have to work with. Obviously, on the group side, there is no scope of appointment. Again, it goes a couple slides or a couple bullets down. You get all the retirees all at once. They roll right into a plan that's sponsored by the group, so it makes it a lot easier. And you add a new revenue stream. So this is a way to, instead of letting referrals get away, you actually can work on this and add a new revenue stream that you didn't have before that has new and renewal commissions. Great door opener for new groups. Obviously, you can take a look at groups you currently have in place, but also use it as a door opener for groups you've been trying to get into. Use it as a way to kind of keep in touch, with them, or to kind of say, hey, use it as go in, take care of the retirees, and then you can kind of go, well, look, hey, I obviously helped you with the retirees. How about naming me the broker record on the other active programs? Group size can vary. Go down to 2, and go as high as whatever you got. Pooled, I've already talked about. Another thing, SIC codes aren't needed. It's retirees. New revenue stream. You lower the client's cost while adding to your current block of business. The carrier shopping isn't done by the broker. It's all handled by the TPA. And the big one here is that you take care of the retirees. And I help you for new groups, but you become the HR hero. There's been a couple of groups that are just like, man, this is great. I love them, but I love them, but there's always kind of the big point that kind of comes with that. So at this point, I am going to open it up. I've kind of run through this a little bit on the quicker side. I could get into more details, but I'm going to take a look and see if there are some questions here. Recording slides with these slides. Okay, great. All right. And let's see. So if there are any other questions, yeah, we had one question that kind of came in, what's the minimum? And the minimum is 2. So, and that can be retiree spouse. It doesn't have to be both retirees. Sometimes you run into situations where it's a group that, the kids are taking over, and, they kind of want to, mom and dad, we love you, but we'd love to kind of get you, kind of off the plan if we can do something like that. The best way to get a quote is another question that came in. If you email me, I can send you, but there's some specifics that I would need, but for the most part, as long as it's a census, copy of the current benefits, what's the contribution strategy, And census just has to be male, female, date of birth, and zip code at this point. Contribution, copy of current benefits. What are they trying to do? Are they trying to match or beat? That type of thing. And if it's self-funded, I would need to see the RX claims for just the retirees. If it's fully insured, I just need to know what the premiums are. So there's some other aspects. Obviously, I need the address and things like that. But it's those are kind of the main things. What's the effective date? Those are kind of the main things that I would need in order to put a proposal together. Typical implementation is about 60 days, and a lot of that is gobbled up by there's a 21-day opt-out period mandated by CMS when you do the auto-enroll. So there's a 21-day period where the retirees actually review the plans. They can call in the service center, they ask all kinds of questions, and then decide if they want it or not. We actually don't see a lot of retirees that opt out once they do it, but are the plans portable? Yes. So say the group is in Georgia, you're in Georgia, you retire in Georgia, and you move to Florida, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, whatever, it goes with you. So there's no difference. The only one state that is a little bit goofy is Florida. Florida is one that they actually still have, the retiree actually has to fill out an enrollment form. Now, if you're in Georgia but moved to Florida, that's fine. That's not a problem. So and I see another question here as well. But yeah, so if Florida actually has male, female, age-banded, smoker, non-smoker rates based on zip code. So it's kind of a little bit goofy, but it's and those are the standardized plans. But the prescription drugs are nationwide. That doesn't matter what state you're in. Those are all over the country. So if the employer decides to end the plan, is the plan portable then? The question is yes. So it doesn't come up very often, but if the plan were to go out of business or what have you, it's more of the group then becomes former retirees of, type thing when we do the renewal. And we would then have to send out the renewals to the retirees, directly, as opposed to the broker in the group. So those are, those types of situations. They don't happen very often, but that's what we've kind of done in the past whenever something like that has happened. So let me see, are there any other questions at this point? Yeah, well, if not, you have my contact information, and obviously you'll get a copy of the presentation as well. And I think our goal of kind of staying ahead and leaving some time available to get to the next session, I was able to kind of do that. So yeah, Donna, it's up to you if you want to kind of go from there, or I can kind of keep it open for if more people have questions.
Well, if anybody pops a question in, we'll kick it to you. We appreciate that, Ken. That was a great presentation. We learned a lot that most of us probably didn't know. So that's always a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm real impressed with that myself. I'm thinking about all the clients that we could use that with.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, everybody, are our breakout sessions. There are 2 breakout sessions. One is Medicare 101 with Joanne Wyckoff, and the other is Persistency and Commissions with Keith Knabb. I think both of those are going to be great sessions depending on your area of expertise and area of interest. So be sure and join us for one of those. If there aren't any other questions, and there don't seem to have been any that popped up, then we will be sure and continue to stop in on the exhibitors when there's an opportunity to do that, and thank them. And thank Craig Taylor, if you run into him, with Seniors Market Sales, for sponsoring this session. Thanks, everybody, and see you in the next one.